It's 8 o'clock. Doug, I think you should really get on your video now. There we go.
There we
And
go.
some things I haven't figured out on this Zoom stuff, but I'm figuring it out. But
Awesome.
I'll let Doug start. It's 8 o'clock, and then we'll jump into things.
All right. Thanks a lot. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us here today. What we're going to do is talk about basically an overview of what it's like to get into to become a college recruit for soccer. Give you a little bit of background. My name is Doug Johnson. I'm the president of the Hawks and the Stars organization. And we've had some kids that now have grown up and now they've gone and they've played in college. And Coach Sal and Coach Eddie and a lot of other coaches that are on the call with us, we've all worked really hard to try to get them in. And we've realized that we kind of need to have a better process to do it because it's a very difficult thing. When you go through college applications and you go through college recruitment, it is something that you really do need like an expert in that. And we're very happy to be partnering here with Dan. Dan's been a college coach. He knows all the college coaches. He started an organization that assists people to get into college. We looked around, we talked to a lot of people, and we really wanted to partner with Dan. And that's why we're here today, because we, as our organization, we want to do the best we can for our players. And so we're going to give this short overview of what the recruiting process is like, where we anticipate having a few other webinars down the road and some ID camps. And I'm sure Dan's going to get into more of the details. But without any further ado, Dan, take it from here.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate your introduction. And yeah, that's spot on. I think we're excited to get things started. I'm going to share my screen and I'll get things moving in the right direction here. But let me share my screen and then we'll jump into it. But yes, I'm Dan Rothert. I am a longtime college soccer coach. About 3 years ago, I started top student athlete recruiting, where I help prospects and their families find the right fit opportunities for them to attend college and play soccer, right? I use my experience and connections to really help open doors, to really guide people all the way from start to finish, whether it's, what schools should I be looking at? And that varies, right? It's based on your ability level of soccer, right? But it's also based on your academic level, your what you're looking to study, what your family priorities are based on finances and social and distance from home. And there's every player and every family I work with is different in terms of their priorities, but it is a difficult process. I saw that as a college coach. I was a coach for a very long time. And I just saw a lot of kids who ended up not playing in college, or maybe made an interesting choice in terms of the college decisions. And maybe it was because they were, for a variety of reasons. A lot of times they were overlooked. A lot of times they didn't know the right things to do to open the doors, and just a host of reasons. And I wanted to help, and I'm excited to work with Stars. I'm excited to help student athletes and families find more opportunities. I recruited Chicagoland very heavily, but enough about that. We'll talk about what I'm going to do with Stars and give you a brief overview of the process and some things you can be doing now. But as the Stars season moves into full swing later this winter, I expect to be more involved with more webinars, an ID camp, being open for questions and things like that families might have to really help open doors. The other thing I help do is get them through the financial aid process and the scholarshiping process. And we're going to talk about that briefly, to really help families get better opportunities financially and scholarship wise. I was a men's and women's college soccer coach for 24 years. All right. I was, most of my career I spent at Loras College in Dubuque, Iowa. I still live in Dubuque. I'm about 3 hours from Chicago. My wife's from Chicago proper. She's from the city herself, and had a lot of success as a coach. Part of that success, I believe, was really recruiting was the lifeblood of it, right? Recruiting was a really big, important part of it. You have to have the right kids on the bus. You have to have the right athletes for you, academically, athletically, all these different pieces, kids that buy into your system, the right kids for your system and style of play and those types of things. Everybody's a little bit different in that regards. But I think a big part of it was recruiting. Recruiting was one of the reasons my teams were as successful as they were. But because of that, I was also associate athletic director for 5 years, overseeing recruiting for the entire athletic department at Loras. So I'm familiar, like I said, I recruited Chicagoland very heavily. I'm familiar with your area. I'm familiar. I had a lot of kids from that area that played for me in the past, and excited to help Stars, place more kids in college, find better fits, and things like that. So I think it's a unique opportunity to be able to utilize, what I do and help the club as well. So it should be, it's a win-win. With the Stars, again, Doug mentioned it, a series of recruit education webinars, that's definitely different topics, right? We're going to talk about different topics based on the needs of the club, the needs of individuals, ranging from, how to get a hold of coaches and talk to them, to education on financial aid and different things like this. It'll be important to help in those areas. I have exclusive player profiles, so you'll have access if you make the club team. You'll have access to a player profile, which you'll be able to set up a web page basically for yourself, where you'll have access to telling coaches about who you are, putting video on it, your contact information, all of these things. That'll be an important part of it. And then also within that, you can filter and look at colleges based on your needs. If you want to look at a school with a particular major, you can look up all the schools in a particular major that are in Illinois. Or if you want to go out of state, you can do it that way. And you can look at schools, based on those different things as well, based on division level, whatever it might be that interests you. One of the webinars, and I'll send some information about that once teams are selected here. And we'll get everybody set up with that, will be how to set up your profile, how to use that to your advantage. I plan to host a one-night ID camp here in November, inviting college coaches from around the region. I know a vast majority of college coaches throughout the Midwest. I'm able to connect with them. What I do, for people who I work with is, I'm reaching out to coaches on their behalf. I call coaches daily and tell them, hey, I have this kid, you might like them. I think they would be a good fit for your school. And I don't bark up the wrong tree. That's an important piece of my business, right? I can't bark up the wrong tree, but if they are a good fit based on athletic ability, the school, the major, all these different pieces to the puzzle, then I reach out, and it helps get people on the doorstep for sure. I think it's a big player in the room to get you on the doorstep. I can't get you in the door. You got to play in front of coaches usually. To do that, they want to see you play live. I also help make highlight videos, and I have a video camera. I'll bring it out, to the ID camp, but probably, we're talking about bringing it out to some games so we can record some games, so we have video to send to college coaches, and you can make highlight videos and things like that. So a lot of things that I plan to do to help Stars, and excited about this opportunity in regards to things. Real quick, I just want to talk about, a brief overview of where we're at with college soccer recruiting, and where it's at now and where it's going to go in the future. And, I'm not going to bore you to death tonight, but there are COVID complications, and the ramifications are still an issue. And, they will continue to be an issue for some time here, right? So basically what I'm telling you is, you probably have heard this, but maybe you haven't. Every player that played 2 years ago in college sports got an extra year of eligibility. Those players are now juniors, but they'll still get 2 more years after this to compete. And so what has happened is, college kids are getting 5 years to compete. High school kids get 4, and there's become this logjam, right? We have kids who are staying for an extra year to play their 5th year, which I don't blame them. Why not? there a lot of kids are transferring that, for a fifth year and starting a master's degree. Maybe they graduated at a certain college. And so we're seeing, just more upperclassmen in the mix. And, coaches a lot of times some coaches would rather recruit upperclassmen who's played 3 or 4 years somewhere else, and they can transfer to their school for 1 year, and they're going to make an immediate impact versus maybe taking a freshman who might take a little time to grow into their position. It doesn't mean there are less opportunities. I do think there are different opportunities. You might not, the door at a school you might really want to go to might be closed because their roster's full. They have everybody coming back next year. And they don't graduate anybody because they're going to come back for that fifth year. I just talked to a coach the other day, and he's got every player on his roster coming back next year because he doesn't have any true fifth-year seniors, and he's got, he was at a really young team the last couple of years. So, opportunities at his school are very limited. He might take a couple kids next year because he still wants to have a class, but all in all, limited options at that place. But I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I think you need to be creative and cast a wide net and be open-minded in this process because, the school you may really want to go to may not have room in the inn. That just could be a fact of life. But also there's a lot of great schools out there. And sometimes the best school for you is a school you never heard of. I went to Loras where I played. This was 30 years ago, but when I was 16 years old, I had never heard of Loras College, right? And now, 30 years later, I went there. I coached there for 24 years. If you ask me now, that was my dream school. If you asked me when I was 16 what my dream school was, I was probably saying some name brand that I saw on TV and maybe it wasn't, reality and things like that. So those are important things. There's a couple myths about scholarships, right? Soccer scholarships, and this is important. Soccer scholarships are usually partial. A full ride is very, very rare. I'll explain that in a moment. But you should not be saying you need an athletic scholarship. Rather, you should look at this as trying to find the best value on college because you might get a lot of money from your grades, all right, or your involvement in leadership activities and whatever it might be. And so because soccer scholarships are usually partial, grades are really important, and they can result in more money for college, right? So real quick slide here, just to give you an example. There's 204 men's Division I college soccer programs. All right. There are 9.9 scholarships at Division I. All right. I don't know why 9.9, not 10, but there's 9.9. So an average roster has about 30 guys. All right. That's about normal. You play in practice, you play 11 on 11. That's 22. You want to have a few extras for injuries and whatnot. It's usually around 30 guys on a roster. So it's about a third scholarship per team. And that's if they're fully funded. Not every team gives out 9.9. The school decides. So the coach has to decide how they're going to divvy up this 9.9 scholarships amongst all 30 guys. And that's seniors through freshmen. All right. And they could give it up even across the board. Everybody gets a third. But typically they give the freshmen a little bit less. And as you grow into your position and you prove your worth, you get more. So those things are things to consider when you're looking at it. It's not like Division I basketball and football where pretty much everybody's either on a full ride or they're a walk-on and they don't get any money. Soccer they can give you partial scholarships. They can divide that 9.9 any way they please. And sometimes they give a full ride to some kid. Maybe they're giving a full ride to some international player who's fantastic, the next Messi, right? Well, now they're down to 8.9 for the other 29 players. But it is a mix, right? So they can add academic money on top of scholarship money. So I talked to a coach recently. The first thing out of their mouth was, what's the player's grades? And I said, actually, this is a great student, 3.9 something, really good student. Great, because the 3.9 at my school gets 50% off. And then we can add another third scholarship to it. All right. So now we're looking at, 83% off of tuition, of everything, tuition, room, and board because of academics plus soccer. All right. So we can add on to things in the soccer world. We can add on to academics and other things, but there's a lot of other opportunities out there too. So Division II, there's 200 teams playing Division II. There's 9 scholarships. So there's really good opportunities at Division II as well. We'll talk about that. Division II, the number 1 team in Division II last year beat the number 1 team in Division I to start the year, like 4-2. Really good level of play. Great opportunities. Might not be the most name brand schools out there, but there are great opportunities. Division III, there's 400 teams playing. There are no athletic scholarships. Sometimes they give more academic money and other things, and they have programmatic scholarships. Like, if you go into this major, you could get, $3,000 more a year or whatever it is. They have different programs out there that school to help reduce the cost. There are opportunities out there where I've seen Division III schools come in at a better cost than Division I and II. And there's even state schools. There's state schools in Wisconsin that accept Illinois players that are Division III, and you can go for the state school cost, plus you get some money off for your grades, and you can get a better deal than you can go into, maybe a private Division I and get some scholarship money. Those are things we'll talk about in deeper in a later webinar. There's what's called the NAIA, which is the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. There's about 200 schools playing that division. They can give up to 12. Some schools give the full 12, some don't. But it's a really, really good level of play sometimes too. There's some of these schools are in the Chicagoland area, Roosevelt, St. Xavier, Judson, some just that come off the top of my head that are NAIA schools, and they have really good opportunities, and they can give a little bit more scholarship money sometimes for soccer. And there's junior colleges. There's 200 junior colleges. Sometimes they give up to 18 if they're fully funded. That can be a really good opportunity for somebody who maybe is overlooked early on, or maybe has bigger dreams and they weren't recruited really heavily at the highest level to start with. They can get there. There's a really good level of play at some junior colleges too. I think personally, there's different levels within each level, right? In terms of soccer, there's the top level Division I teams, Wake Forest and Clemson and these teams who, they're the top of the top. And then there's the next level down and the next level down and the next level down. My team was a Division III team at Loras, and we would go play versus Division I teams, usually middle or lower level Division I teams, and we do really well. We won a lot of those games. We competed, had some ties, things like that. There was even a Division I team that stopped playing us because we did too well against them. I use this example. Last night I watched a game of a NAIA team, Clark University here in town. Clark University is tied a team, and it's called Central Methodist. They tied Central Methodist, and with Central Methodist also tied Tulsa, which is a top 10 Division I team earlier in the year. Right? Who's to say, Central Methodist is really good, but Clark's proven they're just right there too. There's different levels within each level. So I never say, I don't rule out anybody. I think there's great levels of soccer at any level. It's not like football and basketball where size matters, 400-pound linemen or 7-footers, those types of things. I think it's a mix. Soccer can be anything. Style of play matters, right? Things like that. But, we're not limited. Lionel Messi is 5'7", right? So, sorry, I think you might not be able to see that. I'm going to fix that up. The myth, number 2, if you're good enough, coaches will find you. Most scholarship and most roster spots go to those that market themselves the best. Players who wait for coaches to come to them seldom get scholarships or even end up playing in college. You can't just sit there and say, "Yeah, I want to play in college. I hope I'm gonna get found." Right? It doesn't quite work that way. Right? You need to get yourself out there. As you go to events with stars, I'm going to communicate with you about what you should be doing to tell coaches the events you're going to. How do you reach out to a coach? How do you tell them you're going to be in an event? Send them your schedule, making sure they know you're there, because coaches go to these events and they watch the players they know about, and they watch the players they have relationships with. That is the truth, right? I would go to an event, and I know every coach does it. They will go to an event and they'll watch at a tournament or a showcase, and they know you're going to be there. And they know, okay, at 8 a.m., I need to go to field 2 and watch Dan Rother play, right? And then at 9 o'clock, I need to go across the complex to field 8 and watch another kid play that's written me. And maybe I see a kid or two at those fields that I didn't know about because they're playing against the kids that I wrote, or they wrote me or emailed me. But in reality, you need to get out in front of coaches. So that's one of the things I'm going to work with you, the Stars folks, on is reaching out to coaches to let them know about these situations so they know you're playing. Myth 3, I just said it before, right? Like, first off, the division you play is a philosophical choice. It's the choice the school has made based on financials, other factors. It's not like promotion. You can't get promoted to Division 2 or promoted to Division 1, right? My teams would have been promoted a lot of times because we were winning this, compete for national championships. We would have been promoted all the time. But, a lot of people think Division 1 is the best, then Division 2, then Division 3. In reality, there's a lot of overlap, right? The best Division 3 teams can compete with the middle or lower Division 1 teams. Division 2 is kind of in the middle. NAIA is kind of in that mix too. There's a really good levels at all the levels, but there's also really bad levels at all the levels. And so, I always say one of the things when you get recruited is, do you want to win, right? Because sometimes you could go to a bad Division 1 where you're going to win a couple games a year, or you could go to a really good Division 2 or Division 3 where you can compete for a national championship. What's important to you? Those are all things in the end. The goal is to have a lot of schools interested. We want to have every individual have 3 or 4 schools who are interested in them, so that you hold the cards and you can make the decisions about the things that you want in college. That's a really important piece of it. All right, so 5 major mistakes in recruiting. I'm just going to show this quick video. It's pretty sarcastic, so enjoy it.
Are you going to play in college?
Yeah, probably D1.
That's cool for
North Carolina or
Well,
Duke.
I don't know why that's not playing. Weird. We can skip that
Maybe
today, I
Wake
guess. I'm not going to fool around with the volume here because I don't know why it's not coming
Forest
up.
or State if I have to. I'm not sure yet.
We'll move on to the
Are
next
those
piece,
coaches
next
at the game
slide.
today?
It's a funny comment. This kid's making all the mistakes. He's saying how great he is. He's the best player ever. He's his friend's dad who played Division 1 said he's good enough to play Division 1, right? And how he's, he made all conference, so he's being recruited. He should be good enough to go to Division 1, but no one's ever seen him play, and he hasn't sent his information to anybody, and nobody knows about him, but he still thinks he's good enough, right? It's pretty sarcastic. I don't know why it wasn't coming up, but I apologize for that. But I'll send that in a video. I'll send that recording to you via the club. But mistakes, target the wrong schools. Be honest with yourself and don't target schools that aren't good fits for you. Athletically, everybody wants to play Division 1 at the highest level, but many people overshoot. I think it's really important that you reach out to, if you're going to reach out to Division 1, you also reach out to Division 2, Division 3, NAIA. Cast a wide net. You see who's interested in you, because the coaches are the ones who decide what level you are. It's not you. All right. It's not your friend's dad. It's not whatever it is, right? It's the coaches decide what level you are. I encourage you to go see college games. I don't care how old you are right now. And I think we have a range of ages on here, mostly high school kids. But go see college games. Go see games of teams that are local. Go see Chicagoland teams, Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA games played even this fall yet, because there's still a good month and a half left of the season. There's a lot of games coming up. It can help you and watch that game saying, oh, could I play? Do I think I can see myself playing at that level? Watch the people playing your position. See what they think. I think it's a really important thing. A lot of kids that I've talked to in the past, have you seen a college game? No. then how do you know like even what the levels are about, right? You need to know a little bit about the game and the college game, and it's a different game. It's a super high paced game, and the pressure that teams apply is really, really crazy, and it's a super fast paced game. And I encourage you to go see games yet this fall. So, I may not talk to you for, a few weeks and until our next webinar and after the season and stuff. If you get a chance here, and maybe even high school season is usually over before college season. So, find a way to go see some college games. Academically, don't pick schools that are above your academic rigor. I get kids that, hey, I want to go to Harvard, and they have a 3.5 GPA. You're not going to Harvard unless you're, the top of the top student in your class, right? And at those schools, everybody's the same. Everybody's the best of the best, and you're not going to get that much academic money, if any at all. So scholarship wise, but if you looked at one tier down from Harvard, you might get a ton of academic money. And that kind of is across the board, right? Look at schools where it's going to be good fits, and coaches want kids who are they're not going to have to worry about them academically. They're not going to fail out, these types of things. They don't want to take a risk on a player because they're good, because that becomes a headache for them. They want players who are going to be really good, for them academically. Financially, don't target schools that are out of your price range. Some of these schools don't give any merit money based on your grades because they don't need to. Harvard doesn't do that. All right. They'll give it up to you based on your financial need-based aid, which is the FAFSA, and that's another topic altogether, filing the FAFSA. For you seniors in here, October 1st, which was yesterday, the FAFSA opened. That's the free application for federal student aid. I encourage you to fill that out, and sometime this month. It doesn't have to be way down the line. It doesn't have to be today because it opened yesterday, but sometime this month, because there are schools out there that will give you money just for filling that out by November 1st or November 15th and things like that. And they'll give you an early FAFSA award that you filled it out on time or early, I should say, not even on time. But so look into that. I'll send that information in my notes to the club. So, you seniors in the room, at least that's something you can start working on and get ahead of the game on that. Another thing is the experience. What's the overall experience of the school? The area, the culture, the fun. You get out of college what you put into it. I truly think that if you want to enjoy a college, you got to go in with the right mindset and and put yourself out there. If you want to if you want to study a certain area, if you want to go to pre-med, you better work hard to get to know your professors and work with them in labs and different things like that. And that's going to get you ahead of somebody else to get into, a med school and things like that. Contact too few schools. A lot of players contact too few schools. Like I said, test a wide net. Diversify your options. We talked about that already. You can't just apply to your dream school, your backup school, and your safety school. You need to cast a wide net. Prospects that contact coaches from a wide variety of levels have a much better result in the long run. All right. And like I said before, your dream school might be a place you never heard of. So, and you need to go where you're wanted. You're going to hear from coaches, right? I have kids right now that, hey, I want to go Division I. Well, who's contacting you? Well, Division II and Division III. Well, that's great. Well, let's continue down the road with those Division II and Division III schools. We can still have some stretch Division I opportunities and still reach out to those coaches and hope they might find us. But if they never reach out to us and they're not interested, or they tell us they're not interested, we can't force our way on a roster. So go where you're wanted. You're going to have a better experience if you're wanted in the school. Don't have a false sense of security. A lot of awards and accolades does not mean you will get recruited. Just because you're all conference doesn't mean you're going to be recruited, or all state or things like that, or doesn't mean you're going to go Division I. College coaches decide are you good enough for them. And those awards can mean different things wherever you may live and what programs you're in and stuff like that. Camp invites, emails, admissions meetings don't really mean anything unless they are personal, right? You're getting a personal email, it's personal. Some emails can be look to be personal, but they're really not. We want to make sure that you're getting the right information and you're picking place. You're realistic. My nephew, he quit. This is a funny story. My nephew quit high school soccer after his sophomore year. He's from down by St. Louis on the Illinois side, but he ended up playing football his last 2 years. And senior year came around, and he got an invite, and it looked pretty personable, and it said, "Hey, we saw you. We've been following you, your career with club, and we really like what we see. We'd love you to come to our ID camp because you're someone that's important to us." I'm like, this kid hasn't played soccer in 2 years, right? But they had his name from some, tournament 2 years previously. He played with club, and they just sent it to everybody because they want to make some money. Camps, they want to make some money, and so they can be, a little bit of a complex thing to make sure you're picking the right ID camps, because you don't want to. You can spend a ton of money and travel all over the country going to camps and get no love out of it, or you can do things, a little more targeted. And we're gonna, that's one of the things I'm going to help you all with, is to be more targeted in your approach. And we talked about this. College coaches go to combines and showcases with a plan. And this isn't always true. Recruiting doesn't happen your senior year. You get on radars freshman and sophomore and junior year. I think that's, somewhat relevant. It's not always true. I have a lot of seniors that I just started with who we're working with right now. And if you're a senior in the room right now, I wouldn't panic. There's going to be a lot of opportunities coming your way. We just need to target the right places and work hard to do that here once we get started with things and get things moving. But it is not too late, but you're going to have to work pretty hard and pretty diligently once we get going. Don't expect your coach to help you. Coach Doug kind of mentioned at the beginning, this is a hard thing to do. And it's hard to manage a club, run the club teams, and do everything else that involves, practices and organize everything, and to help every kid in our club connect with college coaches. The coaches are busy. Ask them what their comfortability is, high school and club. I think your high school coaches may have different connections and things like that, or different experiences. That's where I fit into, is, the people I work with. Obviously, like, I'm able to reach out to a ton of college coaches because I can see level of play, and I go watch every kid I play with, and I see, most of you, if not all of you, at the ID camp situation we're going to host with Stars here later in November. But ID camps and showcases, like I said, are they worth it? I think it's important to determine, what's the return on investment? What's your budget? Because you could spend a ton of money on these and get nowhere. But figuring out ones that the schools you're going to want to look at are going to be at, you've had communication with those coaches. I think it's really important. I had a player the other day, should I go to this camp? It's in South Carolina. And I'm like, dude, I think that's very, I see the email. It looks fairly personable. All right. You've shared it with me, but I think you need to make sure that they really are interested, right? You could go down there and waste a ton of money just going to their camp if they're not interested. But, hey, coach, are you looking for a center back next year? I'd love to really jump on a phone call here before I commit to coming down, because that's a big commitment for my family to come down to your camp. Is that something we can do? If they get back to you and they set up a time and they spend 45 minutes on the phone with you and they like you, okay, maybe there's some reality to that, right? But if they don't, then you kind of know the answer, right? Not to go to that, things like that. And then how do you maximize that opportunity? You got to, when you go to camps and you go to showcases, you got to talk to coaches, you got to introduce yourself. You can't be hide in a corner and be shy. You got to be vocal on the field. You got to stand out. And it's not just, you can't just be a ball hog and stand out that way, but you got to, what can you do to stand out? I ran a clinic for a team last week, and the kids were way too quiet. And I said, if you go to an ID camp, you got to be much louder than that. Those types of things, and helping people target the right camps. Video, having a highlight video is important. It should include everything your position normally does, right? Each position has different things they need to highlight, but you should be able to circle yourself on it. You should be able to, so the coach can identify who you are. Goalkeepers don't need to do that because everyone knows who the goalkeeper is, but everybody else should have, you put a little circle before each highlight. You show the different things that position should do well. You put your best stuff at the beginning, and you extend it through. Level of play is important. You can't be playing against the worst teams out there, because coaches can notice that stuff. They want to see you against good competition. That's one of the things I help with. Help all my clients help make video, or help them make video, or make it for them. Through the clips that they have, through clips I have. I take all different platforms, put it all together, those types of things. But other advice, be in shape when you go to events, camps, showcases, tournaments. That's why I think a camp in November is really crucial, because you're still coming off your high school seasons. You're in a good fitness level you should be. And so maintain your fitness after your season's over, because you're going to have an ID camp. You know that. Be ready for it. There's a fine line between the right amount of contact and being annoying. Like, you don't just want to keep spitting stuff at coaches if they're not responding to you. But if you have something to say, or they're responding to emails or texts that they're sending you, go for it. A lot of times my clients ask me, how do I respond to this, coach? What should I say next? I just had one tonight. A coach came to my game. How should I respond? Those types of things. Write emails from your computer, not a phone, right? I think, you need an updated email address. You need an email address for recruiting. You need to have your voicemail set up on your phone, because some coaches are old school and will call you and leave a message. You need to check your voicemail. You need to respond to voicemail and emails and text within 24 hours, because if you don't respond, somebody else is responding. They're not just recruiting you. They're talking to a bunch of players, right? So the faster you respond, you move up the list, right? And that's important to know. I say write emails from my computer so you don't have typos and those types of things. So really, like I said, I help gain more exposure. I help save money on college costs. I help facilitate the process from start to finish. If there are questions individually, we can start on some of that stuff. I'm not going to jump into a ton, because we're going to have many more of these webinars, maybe even in person, depending on how things work. I'm going to have the ID camp. We're going to talk about more things, but if there are questions, you can put them in the Q&A. There's a couple in here right now. You can put them you can raise your hand, and I'll go from there. But if there are questions, put them in the Q&A. My son is 9. He's clearly too young to look at colleges. Is that right? And what age should I start using, services like yours? I think, college coaches on the men's side, they're really, I think, a good time to start second half of freshman year into sophomore year. I think that's probably when the wheelhouse really starts going. Until that point, I don't think you need to really jump into that too much. That's when it really gets, at least get on radars. Coaches can't even contact you until after your sophomore year. They'll send they'll send you to some ID camps and things like that. But the best players in the country in men's soccer aren't really even getting signed till, sometime in junior year. And then those are the very, very best. All right. I have kids who are, just getting found in the last year as juniors, and then, even as seniors, just getting found and signing Division I, II commitments and things like that. So I don't think there's any huge rush. That's definitely something. I'll send you a note on your other question. Definitely, try to help you out with that. So that was the one questions that I had. But any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat or Q&A right now. I'll wait around for a couple minutes. I look forward to working with Stars to really help you guys get a lot more out of your recruiting, and to really help people find better fit opportunities that might be out there for you and that type of thing. And I don't know why that just happened. I apologize there. So yeah, any questions you have, type them in, and we'll go from there. So thanks for joining us, and anything else you need, I'll stick around for a couple minutes to answer questions. So thanks for tonight. A lot more to come. ID camp, profiles, reaching out to college coaches, a lot of educational series, and just the ability to answer some questions that might be out there for you and your family. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dan. You guys, if you have any more questions, you can pop them in the chat right there. And if not, you can always contact your coach we'll be in touch with you about where we're going to go with our next steps. Dan, thank you guys so much. And thanks to everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it.